tribal religions were identified with the people of the tribe. For example, in the Cherokee Nation, you could not become a Cherokee religionist if you wanted to. It was impossible. In Amazon, you've got religions in the Amazon that are totally identified with a specific group. I write about in the book, when did that happen? When did the breakout happen, when there was no longer an identity of the religion with the tribe? And that happened sometime around 600 BC, maybe earlier, with Zoroastrianism. The first time any religion divorced itself from the culture it was in. And that was a revolution, and I've really not seen too many people write about this before. Did that help spur civilization? Well, I'm not so sure it did, because the Egyptians were doing pretty well before that, and they had a state religion that was identified with the tribe. The Babylonians, a similar thing before that. So you can see that there were pretty significant religions that had not yet, what I call in the book, decoupled. In 600 BC, though, there was a decoupling of religion, and when that happened, religion was able to propagate without respect to the tribe it came from. That was new. Even the Jews never figured that one out. So that's still a tribal religion. Judaism is still a tribal religion, if you will. Are you following where I'm going on this one?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
So what happened was Zoroastrianism was able to propagate wildly and literally destroy other tribal religions as it became the religion of the Persian Empire. And then comes along later, other religions, Christianity and Islam, do the same thing. They decouple. Christianity is the first effort to decouple from Judaism. It's really Judaism decoupled from the tribe of Israel, and now it propagates wildly throughout the entire Western Hemisphere, West at the time, Europe and all. Islam does the same thing. Long after civilization. So you got to ask the question, which came first, civilization or religion? I think civilization came first. Religion comes along and has incredible power as a meme to propagate, and it just kind of rides along top of it. I talk about that in the concept of the civil religion in the book. In Chapter 3, I talk about how does religion infect cultures, how does religion infect entire societies? And it does, but it's not necessarily related to civilization. The two are totally different things.
Now, there's been a kind of a slightly different take on how to look at this. There's a debate between whether religion is a byproduct or a remnant. And I'm getting from what you're saying that you are more of the byproduct.
Yeah, probably a byproduct.
And that's the position that I've taken and a number of others. I know that, I can't remember which position he took on this, but Pascal Boyer has a couple of good books, actually, on the history of religion and how they were founded. It's an interesting study, and of course we don't have a time machine, so we can't go back and look. Something like religion, something that would be defined as mystical or, I was going to say something really bad, but I won't, has probably always been with us and ridden alongside. But it may be the case that the type of thought processes that go into building a civilization have, as a byproduct, religions and things like that. The fact of the matter is that none of us are perfect, and that's all it takes to get there.
Remember, in answer to your question, the basic fact is religion existed long before there was even civilizations in terms of tribal religions. But what we think of religion today is decoupled from the tribe. None of us see ourselves as a tribe that's identified with a specific religion. It's a very different animal, and but the two are not necessarily related.
You had another question, Steve?
I would agree with that.
You had another question?
Yeah. I just also, this is for all of you guys here. I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on maybe there's a direct relationship between Jesus and Buddha.
Direct? No.
Not that I know of. Although, one of the lovely things about religion is that it just lets people kick their imaginations into overdrive. And I have heard some rather fantastic ideas about how this big gap we have in Jesus' life between, say, the age of 12 and 30. Someone came up with the idea that he went out east and spent some time in India and became a Buddhist. And I'm serious, I've heard that. So who knows? I think the sky's the limit there. So
And evidently, I learned the other night the Baha'i faith tends to view Jesus and Moses and I believe Siddhartha and several others as enlightened prophets or whatever.
Yes.
And I was on a podcast with a group of guys in Australia, the Godless Biz, and they were telling me about an individual who had given up his Baha'i faith because he actually opened the Bible and read in Numbers, I think it's 31, where Moses orders the slaughter of the Midianites. And he said, well, how can we revere this person as an enlightened individual when he does this? And his faith crumbles from there. It's another example of religion holds up right up until the point where you really start to look into it. So. Is that it, Steve?
Yeah. That's all I had to ask. All right,
great.
Thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks a lot. As a reminder, you can visit the ACA's website, www.atheist-community.org. You can email us by emailing tv@atheist-community.org. You can get more information at the website. There will not be a dinner after today's show because we ate before today's show, and we'll be back at our regular time at 4:30 next week. One of the other questions, or did you have something?
Well, I had something. I wanted to use an illustration. I think it helps people understand what the whole God virus thing, how it works. And we haven't really gotten there yet. I call it it's an experiment you can do. And that is sit down with your best religious friend and have a good discussion with them about their faith. And just let them talk. And try to take notes while you're doing it. Ask them about Jesus and they'll tell you, well, Jesus went to heaven. Jesus rose from the dead. Go through all those things and try to write them all down. And then go back a few days later, come back to your friend, transcribe that. And just change everything. Instead of Jesus, just insert the word Muhammad. And then read back the transcription of the little discussion you had using the word Muhammad here and Muhammad there, because Muhammad went up to heaven. Muhammad did a lot of the same things that Jesus did. And watch the expression on their face. And then ask them what's wrong. And they'll say, well, that's not right. And you can reverse this with your Islamic friends and have them do it and then just insert Jesus.
Just don't draw any pictures.
Yeah. What this helps everyone see is the power of the God virus, because it blinds people to the fallacies of their own religion. But most Mormons can tell you what's wrong with Islam. Islam. Most Christians can tell you what's wrong with Mormons, and so forth.
Yeah.
But when they look at themselves, they cannot tell you what the fatal flaw of their particular religion, because the God virus literally blinds them to that.
That was an important discovery in my life as well, because it wasn't atheist sites that gave me the best information when I was beginning my transition that I didn't even know was happening. It was other religions.
Yes.
You want to know what's wrong with Protestants, you go ask a Catholic.
Yes, right.
And you want to know what's wrong with Jews, you go ask a Muslim. And that's the way this works. Now, fortunately, we live in an age where there's much more information available quickly online. I can go, Google, whatever. And now we're getting secular viewpoints that are basically taking all these bits and pieces of information from everybody else, applying a little bit of rational thought, looking at all the evidence, and saying, look, this applies to all of you.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that kind of realization is... It's one of the things that I try to do, because usually when somebody calls, I tend to ask questions at least to get started. Whether it's something simple like tell me what you believe and why, or we try to get down to the meat, because I'd prefer to discuss what it is that they're actually talking about. And, if you stop somebody and say, oh, no, you're talking about God and this, and this means this, you're definitely not going to get anywhere that way, because you're just talking past each other. So one of the reasons that I love, the kind of Socratic method of asking questions is it gives you the opportunity for them to enlighten themselves.
Yes, right, exactly.
In their answers, you carefully craft the questions to the point where they are then forced to answer on their own behalf, and hopefully become aware of this, confusing situation where this applies everywhere.
Yeah.
I could, why is your argument that there must be an intelligent, transcendent being any more strong than an argument that there must be universe-creating pixies?
Yeah.
I mean, they're the same. You got to come up with something that distinguishes your claim from somebody else's.
But the Bible says that it's...
Yeah.